You're listening to AchtungMillwall, broadcasting from the beautiful South Birmingham. Accept no substitute.
Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to one of my favourite shows. It's the ever-increasing size round table. The more people you have on a round table conversation, listeners, the more chaotic it is as a chairperson to keep something listenable together. I'm going to try and do my best. I've got a good array of Millwall experience, knowledge and opinion sat looking back at me on this Zoom call. Number one, the man himself, the husky voiced regular. It's John Rankin. How are you doing, John?
Evening, Nick, and evening, chaps. Happy New Year to you all. I'm well.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to everyone, all the listeners out there. Joining us too, we did a show recently. It's Jim Hackett. How are you, Jim?
All right, Nick, thanks for having me. And again, Happy New Year to everybody. Started out very well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the man who I met at Beckenham Town last season, I'm going to have to do that again soon. It's Graham Payne. How you doing, Graham?
Oh, good, Nick. Good evening and Happy New Year to one and all.
Everyone's got to say Happy New Year. It's a rule on the show. And finally, wearing his Sporting Lisbon 1993 pinstripe number. I haven't seen that shirt in a long, long time. It's Matt Richards. How are you, Matt?
Happy New Year, everybody. Yeah, I'm good, Nick. Hi, chaps. And I borrowed this off John Kerr. He said I could have it. So.
Oh, amazing. You can still get into it, mate. Well done.
It's time.
Gentlemen, 2023 dawns, and I would suggest to yourselves and the listeners out there, this is one of the best opportunities. We seem to have said this a few seasons now, but this is the best opportunity we've had in a long, long time to win promotion. Looking at the nature of the we're sitting sixth as we record this show. Big January, obviously, of transfer speculation ahead of us. Talk of Benicophobe going away from the Den, leaving for the United Arab Emirates, apparently. That's not confirmed as yet, but that's the talk on the internet. So one presumes that the big gaping great hole in the squad is goal scoring. So presumably, if Bennick's moving out, chaps, that means that the club must have at the moment, an unknown goal-scoring target in hand. I mean, it's a big opportunity. I mean, I'm hoping that, and I've noticed earlier on today that there was a share transaction, money coming into the club, 9.6 million of shares. I see, whether that's for the training ground or whether it's to invest in a goal scorer, I don't know. But that must be a priority. I mean, John, goal scoring, is it an area that you see as a priority or other areas of the pitch for you?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. The amount of chances that we create, and obviously, I go in the Coldblow Lane end, so the amount of times that ball whizzes across the box and no one gets on the end of it is staggering, really. So, I absolutely agree. A good, solid centre forward, Tom Bradshaw's more of a sort of goal poacher, maybe inside forward to me. I'm not an expert on these things up front, but a traditional centre forward. The one thing about Benicophobe was he was good at making space for himself. I know he's got a lot of critics, but I was positive on Benicophobe. I thought technically he was a really good player, and he could get the ball, he could take his man on, and he could make space in the box, and he scored some great goals. The one against Huddersfield, the one recently against when he turned his man inside out. So, yeah, I agree. Centre forward for me all the way.
I mean, Jim, Millwall fans notoriously divisive when it comes to some players. Bennick seems to fall into that category. I mean, I'm noticing, we'll come back to Tyler Bury later, but we do seem to love a boo boy, and we do seem to love a figure to pin all of our ills on, and other players seem to get easier rides. Benicophobe leaving, I don't think there's probably any unfortunately, a great loss in a sense because he hasn't really performed this season. But goal scoring for you, would that be an issue, or would you look elsewhere in the side from your side of things to strengthen?
No, I think same as everybody else. I think every time you watch the team play, there's a gaping hole there of somebody to put the ball in the net. I think it's a real shame about Bennett because I thought when he came in, he gave us that spark and he looked like the missing piece of the jigsaw. But as time's gone on, he had a little period of scoring goals. They then went to two up front last year, with him and Bradshaw, and they looked to really hit the right mark. And then obviously, I think Gary Rowett's changing the formation, Bennett's injury didn't do him any favours. And I think every time you've seen him this year, he's like a shadow of what he did have. Every now and then, like John says, he would do something that makes you think there's still that player there. But I think overall, nobody will be too sorry to see him go, because I don't think he's given us enough this year. But it's then what they replace him with, which to me is the bigger one. And they've got to find a goal scorer from somewhere, a natural goal scorer. I think Bradshaw, as much as he works hard and everything else, isn't that natural guy that, if you look, all the other teams seem to have somebody who puts the ball in the net on a regular basis. We don't have that.
No, it's a major weakness. I mean, Matt, Saturday, I thought that Tom, I would love to have seen him got that hat-trick. I thought maybe that second goal was way too much of a stretch to claim it as a Tom Bradshaw goal, and that took away the third hat-trick goal. But he does miss a lot, doesn't he? I mean, there was that screamer of a chance in the first half on Saturday that got put over the bar, and it's an area that's, I suppose, Gary Rowett sees as much as we do on the terraces.
Yeah, and I think to be fair to him, we got him when we were a division below. When we were in League One, he came into us then, or we just been promoted, haven't we? I think to Championship to replace Gregory.
Season he came in, didn't he?
Bradshaw.
He replaced Gregory after the first season.
Yeah,
after the first season in the Championship.
Yeah,
so he's never been there
right.
to replace a top Championship forward, or a forward, who would be playing in the Premier League. So I think he's done a decent job for us. But that chance he had after he scored the goal, he should have hit it with his left, but he tried to hit it with his right. Who am I to criticise Tom Bradshaw? But we do. I mean, even before these rumours about Afobe going, we needed another forward anyway. So you could argue perhaps we need two. But it's like all the chaps are saying. I think what's been positive over recent weeks is that we're creating a lot more chances than we ever did. Thinking back a year, we wouldn't be creating any chances whatsoever, but we're doing that now away from home, and we did it, the last game on Sunday. So yeah, we need forwards, but then every club coming up to this window, whether they're fighting against relegation, they're fighting for promotion. If you're in the Premier League, everybody wants a goal scorer, don't they? So we just need to hope and pray that the scouting is working, and we can unearth a couple. I
mean, the scouting, Graham. I mean, we've said a few times on these shows. I mean, I want to take my hat off to the scouting, because we've actually backed some winners this season. I mean, obviously with Zian Fleming as the standout, but also for me as well, Andreas Vogelsammer, because they're both decent players. I mean, Vogelsammer obviously hasn't hit the back of the net as much as Zian has, but you can see there's clearly a good player there. I'm hoping that whoever, I'm presuming that we're going to get a replacement for Bennett, because nothing's official. But that's the kind of player. It's probably going to be a lesser known or unknown player coming in from possibly abroad. We seem to be looking, away from England now. I think that's a good thing, personally. How do you see it, mate?
Yeah, I agree with that. But I also think, as well as what you're saying about the needing a goal scorer, which we do, but apart from the way it seems away from home, we've finally started to score goals. But take Rotherham out, the 3 home games before that, Wigan, Hull, and Bristol City, we created really nothing. And for all the chances that Bradshaw supposedly misses, he hardly gets any in a game. And I feel we still lack that creative player, whether it be a winger. I mean, Zian Fleming, I've said this, and maybe I'm going to get stick over this. Yes, he scores goals, but playing in the position he doesn't create goals. He's not. I don't think he's. Someone told me at last home game he's not created one apart. Rotherham maybe at the end, but he hadn't created one goal all season. So I do think we lack creativity, especially when teams that come to the Den and just stick, many men behind the ball, and we can't break them down. Hull, Wigan. That to me, even Bristol City, that was 6 points drop for me. We should have won all 3 of them games.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I was going to repeat the point in a way, as we do seem to, and historically, I think we will probably have struggled to break down mediocre to average sides, such as Bristol the other night. There's been Wigan. I'm thinking back to pre-Christmas. We've always seemed to struggle. I think the holy grail at this level is to find an intelligent player that can have some physicality with it, and hopefully that's what we're looking for up front. John, I mean the flair, the kind of the debate between flair players like Tyler Bury, let's get onto him, as against players that are more your traditional, Millwall styles of players. It's a difficult one because I mean I don't know about you where you sit, but I would clearly against Bristol, there are people digging out Tyler Bury for not working hard enough, not tracking back, not getting stuck in the traditional Millwall style. But he is, he does have abilities that other players. He can do things other players can't do. I think there would be an eternal problem down the Den that we just don't seem to, or the crowd generally don't seem to take to flair players.
I think
That was a sneer. That was a sneer.
Yes, nice. You're leading me, defence counsel. No, I think Millwall has always suffered from how can I say, being diplomatic. Millwall's always suffered from very vocal supporters in a minority who've clearly never kicked a ball in their lives, right? And this has been going on for years and years and years and years. Tyler Bury is, he's a rare talent which we should nurture and appreciate and applaud, not boo. And I think people that boo him need to study their navels for a little while because they clearly know jack shit about association football. There you are. He's a wonderful player, and he's a fantastic creative outlet. And those of us that went to see the Watford game away, which I was one of, remarked on how well Murray Wallace turned his form round because Tyler Bury was tracking back, putting his foot in, getting his body in the right position tirelessly. When they took Tyler off after 60 minutes, he could barely walk because he'd done so much work. So there's my 5 penn'orth. Take it out my chin, as my dad would say. Anyone's welcome to come out and see me at the CBL.
Brilliant.
I agree. I do find it quite funny. I mean, and Jim, you've been around the Millwall scene a long time, like all of us. Yeah. I mean, I do find it quite weird. Tyler was getting some stick because he made a run on the last home game, Rotherham, Sunday, sorry. And went past players like they didn't exist, like we've all said a few times he can do, and then made a shushing kind of, put his fingers to the lips afterwards. Apparently, I didn't see it. And the people that are dishing out the abuse seem to be like ladies at the Sevenoaks Conservative ball that clutch their pearls and how very dare you say something back when I've just called you a cunt. It's a very odd... It's a very odd mixture of Millwall, Jim. I don't know. Am I being too harsh?
No, I think it's probably typical Millwall, Nick. I think it's unless you're getting 100, and I'm not going to say 100% effort. If a winger especially, if he takes a player on 10 times, he's expected to beat him 10 times. There's not a lot of leeway. The fact that he's a young lad and he's getting all this grief isn't going to end well, is it? For either him or for us. But what I want to do, I want to go back to what Graham said earlier, and it sort of reflects around Tyler and some of the other players. But I think Rowett might have stumbled on something again. In fact, that when we play good teams, and we do play a lot of good teams in the Championship, and he put Saville and Mitchell in there, they're workhorses, they win the ball, they do what they can, and we pick up results, or we play half decently. I think the struggle we've had against the Bristol City, Hull, Huddersfield, you can go Wigan, those sort of teams. I think where he might have got it right was taking Saville out and putting Styles in for that little bit of creativity that we've missed. And suddenly we had something different that we hadn't had. And if you're an opposition manager, coach, whatever, that might have caught them out slightly. But I think we look brighter against Rotherham, albeit Rotherham probably the worst side we'll see all season. But I think just having that ability to change players around, because I think he stays too loyal to a winning team sometimes, and that's how it is. But I do think, and I said in a group chat on Saturday, whenever it was they played Rotherham, that was probably a game that Tyler Bury could have gone on and shone in. because I thought down the left-hand side, as much as Vogelsang was over there, he didn't create too much, and yet there was plenty of opportunity for a wide player to get past. So for me, Tyler Bury needs to be brought in for the right games, same as Styles, same as Saville, same as all those creative type of players, and then left out the stronger games. I mean, if you were playing Sheffield United at home or Burnley at home, you would expect the big, strong players to be in there. But I think when we're playing lesser teams, we can get our creative players in there. And there's enough workhorses in the team to do all right. It's just we need that little bit of flair every now and then. And Bury's one. Styles obviously looks like he's got that in him. And suddenly you've got two. And as much as people will say about Fleming, he doesn't create much. If he's got 10 goals, he's not doing too much wrong.
Yeah, he's been fairly quiet last couple of games, Jim, Zian, and which is interesting. And on that point about beating, men all the time. I mean, you're right, because as soon as Tyler stumbles into a defender, he gets slated. But even Lionel Messi doesn't beat his man every single time, does he? I mean, you're setting a very, very high bar. I'm just looking. I don't know if it's interesting or not, listeners, but we're talking about goal scoring being a major problem for Millwall. But I'm looking at the Championship table. Goals for. There's obviously a runaway goals scored for side in Burnley, 52 goals from 26 matches, 2 goals per game, literally. Sheffield United got 44 goals scored. Then you're coming down to Blackburn in third, boys, with 30 goals. Watford in fourth with scored 31 goals. Middlesbrough, have got 41, so they're scoring 10 goals more than everybody else in that top 6, the playoff 4, shall we call it. And then Millwall with 32 and Luton on 31. So I just wonder sometimes whether some of these ideas they kind of get into the popular imagination. And when you look at the numbers, yes, it's always great to score goals, and there are teams that have scored a lot more than us, but we're not that far off the pace with others. I mean, if Blackburn are in third on 30 goals, I don't know if their supporters debate endlessly the need for a goal scorer or not. But it's interesting when you look at the figures. Actually, we're not as bad on that front as you might have thought. We're part of a group. I mean, a bit like Tyler Bury. Is there a kind of like a fixation on certain things that people can't get out of their head, and that becomes a version of the truth that we don't score goals, but actually the numbers seem to imply otherwise.
I think there's an element of truth about that. I think as fans, we're going to be hypercritical, aren't we?
Down the den we are, ever since I started going in 1972. Yeah.
But we are.
One of the first things I ever remember as a kid. I mean, I'd never been to a football match. And I went 1972, and so I had no experience of what football meant in the flesh. And there was a horrible fat bloke that used to get at the front of the Coldblow Lane end, and he was screaming the dog's abuse at Eamon Dunphy. He had it in for Dunphy, calling everything. I thought, well, isn't he like a Millwall player? I don't know. I couldn't, even at that young age. I was only 10, going to a football match, and I couldn't quite make it out. I've never really understood it. Anyway, I think going off on a tangent there.
That's the way of the world. I think I was thinking to myself, like, as I think Jim was saying, we all agree that this is the best chance we've had for years of being promoted to the top league. I was thinking if we're all sitting around in like early '88 and we're having a chat about things, what would we be saying then? And we'd probably be going, Cascarino, he doesn't work hard enough, and oh God, Lawrence, he doesn't do anything, never gets the ball over, that sort of thing.
Get rid of Sheringham.
And this is it. But that's just the way of the world, isn't it? Really. So I think you're right. A bit of reality check is always good. I was looking at the goal difference earlier, and we're not too bad really compared to other teams. The adage is if you're not scoring goals, then don't let them in. And the defence has been pretty strong recently, apart from a couple of hiccups against the likes of Sunderland, obviously. So we can be a bit hard on ourselves, but that's because we want more, don't we? And we want the promised land. We want to be successful. So I think it's probably healthy to be hard on yourself. But you need to kind of step back sometimes and actually think to yourself, where we are, we're doing bloody well. And we all agree we've got a really good chance to do even better than bloody well.
Achtung, Millwall.
Shall we touch on the great goalkeeping debate of Bart Bielkowski versus Jules Long? I mean, I'm just thinking about Just looking at the defensive side, we've mentioned goals scored. Well, we're not that bad goals scored, as bad as maybe some might say. We're not that bad, not that brilliant. If goals conceded, we've conceded 26 goals. Luton have conceded 26. Middlesbrough have conceded more, 33, 28 for Watford, 30 for Blackburn. Then you're into the top two. I think probably discount them a little bit, 25 and 23 for Burnley and Sheffield. So that's a pretty good defensive. I mean, I've, a few times this season, I think I've commented that we look a bit flaky in defence, and yet there the numbers seem to say that we're pretty good, And the goalkeeping, I go round in circles of it, don't you?
I certainly do. I mean, last time we was on here was after the Sunderland game, and I held my hands up and I said I wanted Bart back. But Bart being back on Sunday, every time the ball went back, I was just, oh my God. And there was one point where he played a 1-2 with Danny McNamara in the second half. But McNamara played it back and he sliced it straight back to him. And I don't know. He does inspire confidence in me with his goalkeeping, but the kicking is just, every time the ball goes back, your heart's in your mouth. You think, what's going on? And he managed to get it away, or he slices it. But just getting back on the defensive thing, I think the big thing is Hutch. He's got, the last 3 games he's back, 3 clean sheets. And he's so vital.
Yeah.
If he can stay fit, I think we'll be fine. But the problem is because he's a bit injury prone, and then you're asking, Cresswell to come in or whatever, it's so vital if Hutch can stay fit, in my eyes.
Yeah.
He makes such a difference. He makes Cooper a better player. And, that's the thing. But getting back to the goalkeeping, who knows now? I don't know. I really don't. But
no, I was just looking at. I think it was London News. I think Gary Rowett was saying that he's got a choice to make. I think. John. I think he's a long man rather than a Bart man, so to speak. So I think that we can probably expect to see Jules Long come back when. He had apparently he had the birth of his child. That was a reason why he couldn't play against Rotherham. So that's fair enough. I suppose they might be resting for the FA Cup game, which is because sadly a bit of a nuisance, the FA Cup on Saturday. But there it is. John, I mean, Bart or Jules for you? Which would you go for, mate?
Well, you know where my loyalties lie. I put in our WhatsApp group last year. Might be worth giving George Long a try.
yeah,
And I got pretty
You did
much
say
slated.
that. Mystic Rankin. You did say that.
I got slated by the lot of you.
I'm going to speak to my lawyer.
I've got it in black and not in black and white, green and black. But, I mean, the reason is sort of quite simply this.
He's dried up.
We lost you, John. He just had a
That's
brilliant
Bart.
point
Bart's
to make.
just
Then he went
turned his
silent.
Wi-Fi
How
off.
disappointing.
We can slate him now. He's gone. When he comes back, we'll continue. I mean, Jim. I mean, defensively. I mean, I thought Graham made a great point about Hutchinson because he does bring a certain calmness, logic to that defence. I think it's also noticeable how Murray Wallace has turned his form when he was looking pretty shaky at points earlier on, and yet he's turned his season around as well. And I wonder whether that is the influence of Hutch.
Yeah,
that calm central defender.
I think Hutchinson, you probably notice more when he's not there because there's less.
Yeah, you do.
There's less calamity defending, isn't there? But I think Hutchinson's. I mean, he's a good leader without being vocal, screaming type leader. I think he brings out the best in Cooper. But I also, like you say, I think Murray and Danny Mac over the last 2 or 3 games have really stood out well and give it a solid back four. I think on the bar against Long sort of competition, if it's a competition, for me, I think I started out the season very much behind Bart and thinking he was, our number one. But gradually, I think as Long's been in there, his distribution, his communication seems a lot more solid, a lot more settled. And I just wonder whether Bart's knee injuries are catching him up as he's going along because his kicking is going worse when you think his reason for not being in the team, a lot of it was to do with his distribution. And, for me, I'd have Long at the moment and either of them would be all right, but out of the two, I think I'd have Long the way things are. Yeah,
it's an interesting thing, Matt. I mean, I must admit I was the same about when Bart was dropped. I thought, oh God, we're dropping this one of the best shot stoppers I've seen. Put him on the same table as the great goalkeepers in in that sense. And the distribution, as a fan, you probably tend not to look at it. It's not as spectacular, doesn't catch the eye. But it made a great save against, was it Bristol, wasn't it, when they were nil game late, which actually preserved the point, which looks quite valuable now. So, I think he's improving, Jules Long. I think Rowett will go back to him. I think he favours him for those reasons, to be honest.
Yeah, I think let's be right. Neither of them are Jordan Archer, are they? None of them are kind of calamities that we think.
It was a good goalkeeper in his time.
He was all right for a while, and then obviously he had a bad patch, should we say?
He lost it. Yeah.
But so neither of them were a really bad choice. And also I kind of think that for a couple of years anyway, Bart was obviously our player of the season. He saved us on many occasions. He had lots of shots to save. He's a great shot stopper, but it's lots of shots to save. How many opportunities does George Long actually had to prove he's a great shot stopper? I do agree there's been a couple of goals you could say, actually, he could have done better, but maybe it's more of our memories of Bart than what Bart actually is now. So I would go for Long, as much as I love Bart, and I think most people of that opinion really. But if it all changes and suddenly Long drops a couple of clangers, then we bring Bart straight back in again without worrying.
Big welcome back to John. You're in full flow, mate. You were making such an eloquently put point, and then the internet cut you.
That was you. You hit the stop button.
Do you want to finish what you were saying? I can't remember what you were saying now, so it couldn't have been as eloquent as I'm making it out to be.
It was so quick, you've forgotten it already. No, all it was, when you're standing there behind the goal, those defenders just haven't got the option. It's an extra layer of pressure for our defence, having Bart costing goal as good as he is, because you can see it. You saw it on Saturday. We were getting in an awful pickle because Hutch, Danny Mack, Coops and Murray, rather than just play the ball, back to George Long, who could have two people, rush it. It's his coolness, rushing towards him and pressing him. He will just, go round one and play the ball away. He's an extra defender, and that's why we've kept clean sheets. I mean, all right, he might not be as good a reflex goalkeeper as Bart Bielkowski, but I mean, you can't have someone like Bart at the back and survive in this league, because I'll tell you this, if you got a quick, I'm surprised, if we'd have played Bart against Watford with the pace of that front four, they would have been on him, like a pack of wolves. At Norwich, Josh Sargent, charged down one of his clearances and he wasn't really under pressure, nearly scored. So for me, it's George Long all the way. And I know that's going to be unpopular with certain Millwall players, but there you go. I mean, that's my opinion. I think our defenders have got a lot more time, look a lot more relaxed, and have got another option with George Long in goal, I
mean, Graham, it's a bit of I feel like we've mentioned a lot, but we haven't spoken about Gary Rowett. It's been a pretty strange managerial run for him, really, isn't it? Because he's not the most popular of managers. I don't think that there's an awful lot of love. Even this season, at times, there's been talk of is his time up? One more defeat from, and it's time to call a taxi. All this kind of stuff. And really, it's been a very strange run. When you look back, I think it was October 2019 that he came to us. It's been a period of, I believe, gradual improvement. And I was listening on Sunday. I was fortunate enough to go to the pitch side with Aaron after the game. And Rowett came down, so he was doing the post-match interviews. And one of the points he made to a lady journalist who was doing an interview with him was how much hard work has gone in to produce the situation where at the time we were fourth in the table. And I think I came away thinking to myself afterwards, for a manager that's not exactly gripped the Millwall imagination, I suppose I'm comparing him, say, for example, with Neil Harris, most recently a much-loved son of the club, he's producing situations where we're much, much higher in the table with expectations to challenge for the top flight, which is a level we've never really, we've had old goes, cup run style runs towards it, but we've never had a kind of a consistency of expectation. Yet that's what we've got now. So I'm actually starting to think that Gary Rowett is a good manager? I mean, that might come as a bit of a jolt for some people out there. How do you see it, Graham?
At championship level, he's definitely a good manager. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And I know he's never going to be
Yeah.
a popular manager at Millwall, but his record speaks for itself. And as you say, Nick, since he's come in, we've been in the top half of the table the whole time. We've never had to worry about relegation battles or anything. And, you know, you think back to even like Kenny Jackett, first season we were up. After that, it was all relegation battles before we finally obviously went. And it's been the same before. But, yeah, I think for definitely championships level, he is a good manager. He may not be an exciting manager, but he is a good manager. And his tactics, whether you like them or not, they get results. And we're now in a position,
Well,
as Evan
do.
keeps saying, this is probably our best chance in years, you know, to get in the playoffs properly. You know, we're coming from further behind, haven't we? We make a run later after Christmas. Well, this time we're in the top. Well, I know we're dropping in and out of it, but we're in around the top 6 at Christmas. So, and we normally perform better in the second half of the season.
Yeah, traditionally. I mean, John. I mean, how do you see Rowett? I mean, I think it's been a strange process, as I've said, because he doesn't produce traditionally Millwall moments. I'm thinking now of the Harris win over Everton, the Leicester City, these kind of big cup tie moments of high drama. But then in league terms, we did okay, but we were more a relegation fighter than we were a top 6 kind of regular, you know. And as Graham's just said, we don't really look down anymore. We only look up. And that's quite a tribute to Gary Rowett, I think.
Oh, undoubtedly. You know, technically he's very good. For me, it's what he, you know, it's, I struggle sometimes with whether he's really committed to the club 100% because I watch his interviews and he's always talking about, oh, the missus is going to have a go at me. I've got to get up at 6 in the morning to come all the way down for the Bristol City match. You know, it's all this like passive aggression about what a chore it is managing a club in South East London. And then we've got the one about the, what was it? Oh, Sunderland, yeah, free hit. Go out there and enjoy yourselves. And I think he goes from, you know, I love listening to him because his knowledge, and I learn a lot, you know, about the things he says about football because I don't know a huge amount, and I learn a lot from what he says. But then what I do kind of know about a little bit in my other life is sort of getting the best out of people, having managed sales teams, and sometimes I question his commitment because whether he's committed or not to Millwall and whether he likes Millwall, he has to walk that, you know, he has to talk that talk. And sometimes I just feel that if a nice juicy position came up in Stoke or West Brom or somewhere like that, he'd be off, you know. But look, I'm not criticising him. What he's done for the club is great. And I think he's, with the resources that he's got, with the tools that he's got, I think he's doing a fantastic job. And the players seem to like him. You know, you don't seem to see a lot of you know, bad body language on the touchline and all that. They all seem quite a happy crew. So, you know, overall, I mean, you know, it's like Matt says, you know, what is it, better the devil you know, isn't it? Or be careful what you wish for. So, yeah, I'm positive on Gary Rowett, but I wonder sometimes whether he's positive on us, you know?
Yeah, I know what you mean. He does, Jim. He does mention the traffic in London quite a bit. I must say, I don't know if it's a surprise to him. It seems to be an endless surprise. There's a Blackwall tunnel that you have to drive through to get to Bermondsey. But I'm also wondering if that's not an oxymoron that John just said, like a nice juicy position in Stoke. That sounds like a contradiction in terms to me. But anyway, how does he strike you? You've been around the football scene a bit yourself. I mean, managers must come in all shapes and sizes, Jim, and I suppose it's whatever works in the end, mate. What works as a group, you know.
I think he's exactly what a modern manager is now, Nick. I think they're all very PR savvy in terms of saying the right things, never say the wrong things, and never upset too many people so it comes back and bites them. But for me, I think when we got him, I think everybody was quite happy. We actually got quite a decent name for a manager. Yeah. I don't think anybody in Millwall really saw what he'd done previously that was actually magnificent, but nobody saw anything that was too damaging to us. So he came in, he had that lovely run at the beginning, and And I just think his whole nature isn't one of being in people's faces, isn't, sort of flamboyant. And I mean, you've only got to go back to Holloway and people like that. That's the last thing we needed when he came in. He gave us, he steadied the ship that probably needed steadying at the time, gave us that run. And I think everybody hung on the words of, I'll do it in 3 years or 4 years, whatever it's going to be, and I think his progress has been steady. I think he's one of them managers that it's better to be lucky than be good sometimes, where he's pulled a result out of nowhere, or the team's pulled a result that you wouldn't expect. And it just gives him another little feather in his cap to be able to say, look, we're going in the right direction. How he's got there, I think sometimes nobody's quite sure. But I think he's getting there. I think a couple of players now will enable him to finally have that stamp and say, look, this is it. This is what we're about. Because he's got from 5 at the back to 4 at the back, putting Bradshaw in there, putting Biddy, Mitchell and Saville together. Somehow he's got there without, I don't think he knew how he was going to get there, but he's got there. He's got results. And for me, I think he's not done a lot wrong. He's not done fantastically well, but he's done better than what I think we had every right to expect.
Yeah, I mean, big 4 weeks ahead, man. I'm just looking at the if I'm going to discount that FA Cup game, I know that is sacrilege in some people's ears. Cup run, all this kind of. I'm going to disregard the Sheffield United game, which is on Saturday. But looking beyond that, Middlesbrough away on the 14th, Cardiff, they're just above the bottom 3, and then Burnley and Sunderland. That's 4. Apart from Cardiff, I suppose 4 huge games in, rival sides at the top of the table. It's a big 4 weeks ahead of us.
Yeah, it really is. I think, everyone's seen how well Barrow have been doing under Carrick, haven't they? Because they're in the bottom 3, I think, when we a lot earlier in the season.
Yeah.
And obviously Akpom he's been linked with a couple of clubs, hasn't he? So maybe that might unsettle him, so he won't score against us. I don't know. Cardiff are struggling, so I kind of quite fancy this against Cardiff. And I think our away form, as like I was saying earlier, has definitely improved. The last 3 or 4 games, we're definitely playing better. Burnley's going to be a bit of a free hit, and I quite fancy that one at home. We'd be packed out. Sorry, I shouldn't have said free hit, should I, mate?
Should be a big one, shouldn't it?
But
then Sunderland's always a big game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the crowd, we have a big crowd for that because they'll bring a lot down, won't they? Sunderland, and Burnley will be a packed house as well. I know I'm taking my father-in-law, he's a Burnley fan, to that one. So that could be quite tasty in the Richards household afterwards. But yeah, I think I'm quite looking forward to those because I think what's happened recently is that we are playing well. And Jim, like you said, Sunday's game, I think, with a bit of tinkering there with Honeyman coming in and Stars coming in as well. We're finding ways of breaking down teams as well. So we're playing different styles as well against different teams. So I'm being positive, but the key thing is we need to get a couple of players in the window as well, don't we? So if we can do that as well, then I think Hutchinson stays fit, blah blah blah. If this, then lots to look forward to anyway.
Achtung, Millwall.
I was just looking. I think I mentioned it earlier on in the conversation that there was a post. Apparently, is it Company's House? It might be on the share market. There's been a thing called an allotment of shares, and I had to look up what this means. What does shares allotted mean, listeners? What it means is, I think John Berylson's created a load of shares for himself and bought them himself for 9.6 million. I think that's what it is. But anyway, it's an influx of cash, 9.6 million, which I'm going to guess is for this training ground that we're developing down at West Kingsdown.
They said 10 million, didn't they? For
so it sounds like that's what that is, I'd imagine. I doubt it's going to be to buy a superstar forward, but we'll see. Another thing I found, boys, that was just interesting to me anyway. There was someone posted an average away following league table. So the highest and the lowest away followings. Top of the away attendance table is Sunderland. They take an average of 2,500 fans wherever they go. Burnley second with 2,300, and so down the league it goes. Sunderland top 2,500. Millwall bottom, listeners of this particular league table, with 795
Come on, you Lions!
We're top of the
away
bottom.
fans. Top of, I mean, I'm not going to make the obvious point about quantity versus quality, but that did cross my mind when I saw this league table. I wonder why. I mean, we've never been a big club in terms of numbers, John, have we? I mean, attendance-wise, 12 to 13 to 14,000 at the Den is we can't get many more than 15,000 in the home sections of the ground anyway. So, we've never historically had big numbers. But that's I don't know. The cost of living crisis affects Sunderland more than it does London. So I don't know that can be brought into play as a reason why people don't. And maybe is it just not that many tasty fixtures for people to go to? I don't know. It's a strange one.
Yeah, I've been to quite a few away games this season, and I think one of the reasons is the away support is not from Millwall; it's from Kent, and most of the people that turn up in the car park to get the coach at like 8 in the morning, we're all from there's Herne Bay, Hastings, the outskirts of North Kent. It's all home county stuff. So the actual proper journey for your typical Millwall supporter is from Bexley Heath, that way going out towards the south coast up to Sunderland. And when you put that into it, it deters a lot of people. I mean, Watford was an amazing away day, one of the best ones ever. Absolutely fantastic. And it was easy to get to. But we went to Huddersfield, and I tell you what, there's a few of us there. We were so knackered by the time we got there, we hardly had any voice in us to sing. It's a grueling trip. So
I take my hat off to you doing it, mate. I take my hat off to you. Honestly.
I took my own hat off to me doing it as well. I tell you, Nick. It's because I got my son with me. He's the galvanising, driving force.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, no, I think it's just pure logistics, mate. To be honest with you, it's a hell of a journey. Stoke, West Brom, Birmingham, they're doable. We're going to go to Cardiff. We went to Bristol. Bristol's all right because you've got the M4. But when you've got to also the journey through London, getting through London if you're going by car, I know we shouldn't swear on here, but it's a bastard, I'll tell you.
Yeah. No. I get that. I mean, just looking at the next away game, but Middlesbrough. Proper away game, Middlesbrough. I mean, that's always a tough one, boys, isn't it? I mean, Jim. I mean, you're up north anyway, mate. I suppose some of these games are closer to you, aren't they? We do actually have quite a surprising number of Millwall fans that, for many many reasons, have moved away from London, often to places where you wouldn't expect to find them, such as the north of England. There's a lot more than you think. When I send the calendars out, they're going to all sorts of addresses. I think, well, Millwall fans in some odd places, Jim.
They're all over the place, Nick, aren't they? They're like rats. You're never more than 5 feet from one.
Oh, that's a good analogy. I don't know. I can't really top it either. It's a good analogy. Yeah, they're all over the shop.
I normally use that with Scouts.
Anyway, we'll move along. I thought it might be amusing to go through some of I made the point that Gary Rowett's nickname regime is a bit unimaginative, listeners, and as evidence, I'll present Benno, Stylesy, Coops, Hutchie. These are all just, as I put it on Twitter, obvious plays on surnames, and I thought maybe that a bit more imagination, chaps, is needed, is appropriate, because they're just, they're basic stuff. So I've got the Twitter thread here, and there's some suggestions from better nicknames for players. Murray Wallace is, of course, Muzzer, chaps. Muzzer is his nickname, but Cat Robbins, big shout out to you. You call him Twinks. Twinks is a strange name for Murray Wallace. Twinks. Sometimes when Cat gets carried away, Matt, she calls him Twinksy. Because he's got twinkle toes, she says. Have you noticed his twinkle toes, mate?
Well, I mean, he's famous for his Cruyff turns, isn't he? So maybe Johan or something like that. But I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, Wallace, you would have said something to do Murray Mint or something, Minty or something like that. Or...
I was just going to quote your own tweet back at you. You suggested Billy Mitchell being called Peggy Mitchell.
Peggy, I mean, it's got to be Peggy. I can't believe it's not Peggy. I reckon it is Peggy. They just haven't made it public yet.
I liked, well, this is a highly controversial one here, Graham, from MLL1980. George Savile, he says, could be called Fix It. There's a nod to his ability to control midfield. He makes the point. I don't know about that one. That's a dicey one. And who was the other one? Oh, another one from ML1980. He's on fire here. He's calling Tyler Bury, John, Royal Mail. A good striker of a ball sometimes fails to deliver. Royal Mail.
Well, I'll take that. That's all right.
Someone else says, take the Z off as Ian Fleming, make him into Ian Fleming. Right, but it's not a very good nickname, is it? There we are. We're short of nicknames. We're going to have to stick with Gary Rowett's Benno and Stylesy. Couple of bits to largely finish us off here. Just wanted to make a point. I mean, John and I have been involved in an online debate, dispute, conversation, internet kind of meme about these this business of the memorial stones. I just wanted to ask fans out there who've ordered the memorial stones to go on the Our Wall section at the club. So just to forward your receipt to Shona Groves, the supporters liaison officer. I'll stick a link on the show notes for this, but she is on Twitter, and I think there's the club website's got her email address. I would recommend that you forward your email receipt for your stone when you bought it to Shona, because there is a legal dispute going on at the moment, and that will be helpful, I understand, for the club to get that information together. And I think that's probably as much as I want to say really on that one, John. I think probably best leave that there. The calendars are selling very well. The calendars we're up to, I've assessed we've got a donation there for the food hub of nearly 850 quid all in. Kelly's going to have some more for sale at the food hub at the FA Cup game on Saturday. So if we can get that donation over the line to £1,000, it'll make my little year up. Actually, I think it'd be a fantastic achievement if we can get there. But we're not far short of it. All in now, 860. If you do want to buy one, then there's a link on the Mill Supporters Club website to buy them. I will still send them out to you. I've got some more stamps today, so I can send them out. Incidentally, I found a load of orders that had gone into my junk email. So thankfully, I'm not in the same position as your Tribute Limited, John. I was almost balancing on the edge of the cliff and was falling into that abyss of not fulfilling my orders. I'm out of stuff on my agenda. Boys, did you want to make any final points about the season before we close out today? Jim, did you want to make any final closing remarks, as they say in Parliament?
Yeah, I think I'm just same as everybody else now. I think we're in no man's land at the moment. I think we're all hoping for the best, expecting the worst, and you just never know, do you? I think the transfer window will have a big bearing on our next sort of push or lack of it. I think for everybody watching the Millwall team at the moment, I think we're all very happy with what's going on. We accept there's going to be good and bad performances, but at least they're showing a bit of grit, and let's hope we carry on to the end of the season. And the calendar's fantastic.
The photos are fantastic, all from Chris Beffel. He's for those that don't know Chris, he's a long-term Mill fan, and he collects memorabilia and photos. He's got a massive photographic collection. So there's some really fantastic ones, some team photos I hadn't seen myself. Some really old ones with the names written in, handwritten. So it was a nice thing to be able to do. Matt, I mean, I think that Jim's right. I think the next few weeks will be a season turner, whether we sign the right players. And as we've said already, 4 big games to come. There's 4 big league games to come across January and early Feb.
Yeah, I just think it's, we all need to kind of try and enjoy this as well. As much as it's going to be stressful. Yeah, I know. Do you remember that word? Yeah, I think we do though, because if we can, I know.
Fuck
I know.
off.
If we can, because how often do we get in? How often have we been in this position in
That's
our
missed.
lifetimes? I'm looking back at at us grey-haired chaps on the screen here.
Very rare. Yeah,
It's
very rarely.
very rare
Yeah.
that we've been in the top 6 at the turn of the year. So I mean, it's going to be ups and downs, but let's strap ourselves in. That's what we want to. It's where we want to be.
Absolutely. I mean, Graham, these will be huge games. Obviously, Borough away and Cardiff away will be, we'll see what we can get from that. But the Burnley and Sunderland games at the end of the month, hopefully, we're still in position to, make those into big den occasions. They will be probably some of the biggest games that we've had for a long time. Actually, biggest opportunities both. So, it's all there to play for, mate, isn't it?
Certainly is, yeah. I think 4 points from the 2 away games. Maybe I'm being a bit optimistic, and then going into them 2 home games, there will be big crowds, and they're the sort of games where the den will come into play. And if he can, get this transfer window sorted, and I just wonder one thing that hasn't been mentioned: does anyone think the young boy they brought in from Ireland, is he going to have any, part of the first team?
Imaku. Aidomo Imaku.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a run out Saturday, actually, in the cup game.
Maybe Saturday, but it might be too soon for the league.
Be nice to have a look at him.
Yeah.
Isaac Alofe's gone. Hayden Muller's gone, a defender, obviously, but Isaac's gone. You think that he would be nice to see him, wouldn't it? To see what's going. And also the likes of Roman Esse. I mean, they've not looked out of the depth. He didn't look out of his depth, I thought, in the short time that we've seen him. So who knows? Who knows? But we'll see. I would expect the FA Cup to be the ideal format to give him a run out at least. John, would you play him in the cup game?
Definitely. I was going to say the big positives for me so far this season have been obviously Zian Fleming. I mean, I'm trying to learn a lot about what a number 10 does, and I was watching Matt Griezmann in the World Cup, and I think once we start Millwall as a club the players learn more about Zian and the positions he takes on the field. I think we're going to see even more good stuff from Zian Fleming. I think he's a work in progress. I'm massively positive on Vogelsammer. Rather. I just think he's just, he's the most German-looking bloke I've ever seen in my life. You can imagine him coming over the hill.
Yes.
He's an awesome, intimidating bloke, isn't he? He's just brilliant, So I love him for reasons that aren't necessarily.
Wonder why that is.
I just think his presence is great. But yeah, Romain Esse, and obviously Tyler Bury. The one thing I've got to say is if we keep pressing and if we put that high press on properly and really get into teams, there's no one we can't beat. I think it's when we sit back and try and be clever and and do all that kind of stuff and fanny around at the back, trying to play our way out from the back. I think we struggle. I'm not a proponent of lump ball. I think that's nonsense. But I just like to see that quick, direct, progressive sort of football up the pitch quickly and a high press. And I think we could do well. I'm
going to name drop again now because as listeners might not be aware, I was in the press box on Sunday. How about that? when I was down on the pitch, they were doing like the post-match interviews down at the management areas, and I couldn't get close enough because they were doing it on video and they wouldn't let anyone get close enough. I was trying to earwig onto Vogelsammer's post-match interview. I could just about hear the most serious conversation, very German conversation. And I was trying to hear, there's something about, and he's being inspired. He was inspired by someone at Sheffield Wednesday. And I was trying desperately to think who is inspirational at Sheffield Wednesday. And I couldn't think of anyone, but I think he's a very, very serious looking German bloke, Vogelsammer. And I think that impression was reinforced. I couldn't get close enough, unfortunately. All the recordings I made down are all too quiet to use. So there we are. Gentlemen, I think I've reached the end of my agenda. I want to say thank you to Jim, to Matt, to Graham, and to John for coming on the show. And until we'll be back after the FA Cup game next week on AchtungMillwall. So huge thank you for coming on the show. We'll be back next week with more from AchtungMillwall and hopefully a review of our potential cup run. Until the next edition, it's Arrivederci Millwall. Bye for now.
Cheers, Nick.
Cheers, Nick.
Achtung, Millwall.